Right, ladies and gentlemen, whilst we're waiting for the last people to take their seats, we have a competition. This is a new boy band. Can we come up with some appropriate names, please? Any names? Shout them out. Come on. Grey Zone. Very good. That's good. Boys allowed? Boys not allowed?
That was a few years ago.
I thought it was your son, David. I'm sorry. Excellent. Well, I think we're pretty much at complement now. From time to time, and as regularly as possible, we try and have a panel discussion. And I was trying to work out how many years' experience these gentlemen have on stage. Probably about 200 years' experience of business, including myself, I would imagine. So some good experience here. On a serious note, there are some business owners in the room, and it's quite good just to think about their predicament. There are many decisions we have to make in life, but perhaps one of the most critical and overarching for businessmen and women is, do I grow the business to sell it, or is this a long-term legacy business that I can pass on to the next generation? Now, it's not something we can debate today because that's a long discussion, especially with this current government's view on legacy businesses. So, but what we will do today, we're going to debate. We'll discuss the legal and accounting process of buying or selling a business, but we'll also consider the counter-optic from your employees' point of view, the sensitivities around protecting their futures, and hopefully there'll be sufficient time to ask some questions as well at the end. So I need to introduce you to our esteemed panel. I feel a little bit nervous because I've known these people for a long time. There's a lot of experience here. I hope I don't mess up. So firstly, and we'll do it in the order that people are sat, we have David Pedley, known to many of you, CEO retired CEO of Great Western Packaging Group. Dave has a lifetime's experience in the industry and successfully sold his business a few years ago. So welcome, David. We have David Orr, owner and Group MD of Fencor Packaging and fellow shareholder in Coreboard, UK. David has been on both sides of the fence, having experienced buying and selling businesses and equity. So, and next to David, we have Nick Kirby, non-exec director of Zeus Packaging Group, ex-MD of Swanline Group. Nick has experience of buying, growing and selling businesses and recently sold Swanline to Zeus. Next to Nick, we have Neil, who you've heard from today, owner and managing director of Noah Limited. Neil has helped many clients buy and sell businesses and helps clients decide on their best exit strategies, so welcome. And finally, on the end, a face known to some of you, Ian Grimley, commercial director at the SPA's retained commercial and contract lawyers, Roxburgh Milkins in Bristol. Ian and his colleagues have extensive experience in mergers, acquisitions, and selling businesses for their clients. So welcome all of you. And let's hope this isn't too painful for you. Okay. Now, these gentlemen do know that I'm asking them certain questions, so hopefully nothing will be a surprise. I wanted to start briefly to think about your questions about the motivations to buy or sell, and perhaps in a minute or so, what brought you to the point of the decision. So, what has been your journey to this point, and what were the motivations and considerations that led you to either merge, acquire, or sell? So perhaps we'll start with David, and we'll just go along the line. So in a minute or less, where you found yourself, and what were your motivations for that journey? Okay,
Tim. Well, sort of very briefly, because I think David is going to probably elaborate on those points a lot more. When I set out on the journey with GWP 35 years ago, obviously, our prime focus was to grow our business. A key element of that growth was acquisition, so very much strategic acquisitions as the business developed. And then, as I reached an age, started looking at my retirement plans, we started to weigh up the options of whether we were going to look at a management buyout, maybe employee cooperative, or a trade sale, and that's, as you know, ultimately where we ended up. I think the motivation obviously is to realise your retirement dreams, and people have different methods of achieving those dreams.
Brilliant, thanks, David. Same question to you.
Well, I'd always wanted to work for one person, and there weren't any vacancies to work for Nick Kirby, so I had to work for myself. Now, working for yourself is not for everyone, and as many people in this room know, it can be stressful, risky, and lead to more than your fair share of sleepless nights. But for me, it was a burning desire. And I didn't have a earth-shattering idea. I didn't have a skill that I could sell expensively, but I did have experience of running businesses, and so I thought I'd go and find a business to buy. I'll come back to why I went into packaging, but that was basically the motivation for me. It was a burning desire to work for myself.
Very good.
Thanks, David. Yeah, I mean, my whole working life been in the packaging industry, and so a lifetime really of building businesses rather than acquiring them, but strategically building them ultimately with a long-term view to sell them. They're all family businesses, so my brother Simon, who some of you will know, my brother-in-law Richard, and as we're getting older, I'm into Swanline Times now, which was founded in 2001. We built that business through strategically aligned investments effectively, but we had different desires as we were coming up to our retirement ages, my brother being slightly older than me. No sarky comments, please, because he looks about 10 years younger. He wanted to get out of the industry and sail off into the sunset. I still got plenty of energy, and my brother-in-law was quite happy to go. So we had different angles of looking at it. So really, we built the business up eventually to sell, and we prepared ourselves for that scenario, which obviously eventually happened in 2022.
Very good.
Thanks very much. I fell into market research, and I fell into it by doing some work with a company called Vibixa, and came across a gentleman called Simon Southern. And the Vibixa organisation wanted to have some market research, and so I knew about Simon, dialed him in, enjoyed the experience, and so did he. And he said, would you like to do some more of that? And that was the start. I bought his company in 2013. Very modest purchase, but has been a very fruitful investment. And Simon and I still work together now. But in 2023, I also bought another company in order to be able to grow our market research business, a company called Henry Poole Consulting. And I bought a database. So I bought a database in 2013, bought a database in 2023. And that was really just to expand and grow our offering, and also to take one more consultant out of the market.
Very good. And I don't know how relevant the question is to Ian, but do you have anything to add?
Well, yeah, I've started a business. I've not sold or bought a business, but we've sold and bought thousands of businesses on behalf of clients. So do know quite a bit about buying and selling businesses. I'm one of the owners of our firm, and there's 3 other owners. We're all men of a certain age. And so we're at that point now where it's like, what do we want to do? And all the successful deals that we've seen and acted on, people have got a good idea and a good strategy of why they're selling and what they want to achieve. We're looking at it now saying, well, we could sell to private equity, but we don't want to do that. There's no way we want to be working for private equity. We've worked for ourselves for a long time. We want to keep doing that. We want to bring our next lot of owners through and keep our business going. So I think that's the key to it. Have a strategy, stick to it.
Very good. That segues quite nicely into my next question, really, which was, did any of you look at equity partners, a management buyout or buy-in, an employee ownerships trust? Did you consider any of those, and did you ultimately, were there any advantages or disadvantages of doing both? So I don't know whether anyone has anything to comment on that.
Well, just to pick up on the employee ownership trust, well, part of the joy of running a company for 20 years and collaborating with companies, I was asked, would I like to become a shareholder of a company called Wildlife World? And we have been looking at EOT for a long time. Why have we been looking at it? I'm a minor shareholder. Norman is the major shareholder. He's now 72. And wanted to be able to sustain the business and keep its legacy and keep its character, rather than selling to a trade buyer who would almost certainly just take the order book, get rid of all of the people and probably dilute the offering. And so we have pursued that and are still pursuing it at the moment, because there are some, the plus sides of EOT is there's a lot of tax breaks, there's a lot of advantages for employees in terms of how much money they can earn in a year, £3,600 as employees without being taxed. And there's a lot of tax benefits for going to EOT when you transition away. And it's a way of being able to release money if you've got it in the business. But effectively, the management team, as a trust, buys back the company from you. So there's a lot of advantages. The disadvantages that I've seen is that sometimes an owner saddles the company with the commitment to have to pay back that money. And the second is, unless you've got a really brilliant management team, it is quite a hard ask. And I have to say, that's what Wildlife World have faced. They haven't had the strength of skill in the management team to be able to have it. But it is a great alternative to look at, EOT.
Anybody else have sort of any burning desires to go down that sort of buy-in, buy-out or ownership route?
Really, it was a fallback position if we didn't manage to go through the conventional sale route, because, as Neil said, I mean, there can be complex, a lot of pitfalls, a lot of unknowns, so it wasn't our ideal scenario.
Okay. Anybody else considered equity partners, for example, rather than buying a business outright?
Well, we have an equity partner in one of the UK majors in VPK, and it's working well. They're providing value. It's been well accepted by the employees because it gives us another string to our bow, and it makes us stronger. So I don't regret that at all.
Very good. Excellent. Well, let's talk specifically about buying a business to grow. Something I've had recent experience of myself. So either acquiring a competitor in the same market or diversifying into new markets. So this one, David, to you. So if you can keep the microphone. What made you decide growth through acquisition was for you? And did the opportunity find you, or did you go looking for it?
Thanks, Tim. Well, I've already explained why I wanted to pursue this way of life. Why did I go into packaging? Because I already had managing director packaging on my CV. I needed to raise funds, and the harsh reality is you're only probably going to raise funds in a sector that you've got a track record in. The sheep plant sector, as you alluded to earlier, was really quite fragmented way back in the last century. And I figured that there was an opportunity to put a group together and potentially create value by taking cost out. I looked at 15 sheep plants in 2019. Not many of them were making money. In fact, one of them, whose owner is sitting not very far away from me now, was making more money than the rest of them put together. And so I couldn't add much value to them, but I thought it would, the opportunities, as I said earlier, of taking cost out by putting a group together were compelling. And we ended up buying 2 sheep plants at the same time, which is not a good idea, because you multiply the complications and the risks, but it was probably the only way the deal could be done. Those 2 companies were geographically quite close, which I felt was important because it maximizes the opportunities for cost savings and for synergies. And we ended up, for the next 10 years, buying another, well, we ended up with a group consisting of 13 businesses, reasonably geographically clustered. The challenge then was to make some sense of it and create a cohesive group. And actually, that makes you change your DNA. Because deal making is one thing, running a business is a completely different thing. And if you're not careful, you end up seeing whether you're wearing swimming trunks when the tide goes out. It took us, it was actually only then that we started to focus on doing what we did better, that we started to make a decent return.
Very good. Good. Neil, perhaps what were your motivations for growing by acquisition? Did that opportunity find you, or did you actively go looking for it?
Sure. I mean, I, again, not fell into, but as a result of the relationship with Simon Southern, he introduced me to Henry Poole. And Henry, myself, did a lot of work in Europe together. And I was always wondering if Henry would ever sell out. And at 70, he was starting to indicate that he was going to exit the market. And I think he was going to leave his database just to wither and die. So I said to him, would you think about somebody investing in it? And so he said, I would. And so we invested a modest amount of money, handed it over, and it's probably been the best boost for our business in the last couple of years, where people want to know the direction of travel of the corrugated industry, and they want to know size and scale of the European market. So it's been a very good purchase for us as a company to grow, and probably at least half of our business is market research.
Yeah. Quite a daunting prospect, taking on someone else's business and paying a lot of money for it. With that in mind, what are the things to look out for when acquiring a business, whether it's establishing the value or the payment terms or warranties or stuff like that? What are the things that you really say, watch out? You can answer that or pass the mic on to David.
Well, I put culture right at the top of the list. And what do I mean by culture? Reputation of the business in the marketplace, the engagement of the staff, the tidiness of the factory, the relationship with suppliers. Talk to the suppliers because they can tell you a lot about it. The culture is what you're left with after you've done the deal. The deal will be forgotten. You'll end up with a huge amount of debt and equity finance partners, but the culture is what you inherit. And you need to make sure, therefore, that the second level of management are committed and capable. You probably don't want if you're dealing with an owner-manager, you probably don't want them to hang around, although there's the advantages of having that reservoir of experience and knowledge. There are the disadvantages of having a big personality, watching you make changes and not liking it. So culture's top of the list. I would avoid businesses that sell purely on price. There's always someone cheaper. There's always their customers tend to be a little bit less loyal. I would focus on customer retention and service, because then you can grow with the customers. As an example, we bought a tiny little sheet plant in the East Midlands in Cambridgeshire that the largest customer was turning over £50,000. We still have that customer, and they turn over £700,000 with us. And I'm not saying that to brag or boast, but just to illustrate the long-term benefits of focusing on service and growing with your customers.
Very good. Perhaps pass the mic along to anyone else. Anything to watch out for when buying a business? Anything to focus on? Ian, a wealth of experience.
There's a few little bits and bobs. I think just thinking of some of the main things. The first one is, this sounds obvious, but do your analysis properly. Culture is one of those things, but really do make sure that what you're buying is going to give you what you think you're going to get, and get some help with making sure that's correct by getting the lawyers in place, the accountants, the corporate finance people, any other specific experts that you need to do proper full due diligence so you don't get any horrible surprises. Be prepared to walk away. If it doesn't look right, don't go with the sunk cost fallacy of carrying on with it. Walk away. It's normally the best option. Practical things. Make sure you've got any consents, any third-party consents, any funding consents, all of that sorted, so you're all ready to go. Make sure that you've got a sensible timetable. I've been doing this long enough to turn around to people now and say, that's ridiculous, think again. A short timetable, it can really put pressure on you. It can force you into making bad decisions. So have a sensible timetable. Another one we were just discussing before, if the person who's selling tells you that they're getting their conveyancing lawyer to do the transaction, insist that they don't, and insist they get a proper lawyer. Having somebody on the other side who you think is going to be easy and push over, it's the opposite. If they don't know what they're doing, it can kill the process. It can make it a nightmare. It can even kill the process. So make sure they've got proper lawyers on board on the other side. It just goes a lot smoother if they have.
Very good advice. Any other pitfalls or things to look out for? Any trip hazards along the way? Anybody got any? Do you want to come clean and say that they made a mistake when buying a business? No.
You're going to make mistakes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's change and let's pass the mic to David and let's hear about this.
No, you're going to make mistakes. And one of the points I want to make, whether it's this question or the next one, is you need to have a sufficient amount of cash headroom for rainy days, downturns, and mistakes. That's one of the things that has saved my bacon on more than one occasion, is watch your cash headroom like a hawk.
Very good. Excellent. So we talked about buying. Let's talk about selling or contemplating selling their business. So this next question is going to go to Nick first. From deciding a sale or an exit was the right thing for you and any other potential shareholders, how long did it take from that first, we're going to do it, to dressing the business for sale, the legal process, and the earn-out?
Initially, I can actually go back 10 years. And our first move actually was to bring in a non-executive director. Because what I wanted to make sure is that I personally was challenged on everything I did with my thought process, and that I would take advice from other people rather than just sort of bull in a china shop trying to achieve something. So I worked with that non-executive director, which is Bob McClellan, well known in the industry, for more than 10 years actually, but 10 years really on the basis of thinking about the overall sale of our group as we were growing it. We then, I totally endorse Ian's comments about partnering with somebody to help you with the sale process. So once we'd made the decision, the three shareholders, myself, Simon and Richard, and we had another company with another shareholder that was part of the group. Once we'd made that decision to sell, we partnered with a company called Grant Thornton, and they took a lot of pain out of the process. So we'd made the decision. We worked with Grant Thornton. They took a lot of the pain away, as I said. They filtered the information memorandum. They just made it as punchy as possible. So there was not too much sales bullshit, for want of a better word, in there. That process actually, it took quite a long time with Grant Thornton before it was actually released into the market. From release into the market, the timescale was probably, I think it was about 6 months in total, of which the process, when we found a buyer, and it was very particular to us to find the right buyer, because Swan-Irons is a trade business. It will always be a trade business and remains a trade business. That really reduced the number of potential acquisitors, if there is such a word. The process, after having accepted an offer, took about 4 months, I believe, with our lawyers and Grant Thornton before the completion of the sale.
So start to finish, well over a decade.
Including my non-executive,
Yeah,
I mean,
because
you have to plan.
You were starting from that point.
You absolutely have to plan, and everything we invested in, we looked at the consequences of investing in that, whether it was a startup, all our businesses were startup businesses from scratch, or equipment investments. You're investing in capacity, because nobody's really going to want to buy a business that's at capacity. So it was just a long process, and then we were basically in a position to go forward confidently with a business that was performing well and perfectly saleable.
Very good. And was there a specific earn-out period? Did you have to stay for
Yes, there was an earn-out period. We had a 2-year earn-out period. But it was actually 18 months because it was a two physical years or 2 financial years, but we were 6 months into the first year before completion. So it was just backdated that 6 months. So it was a 2-year earn-out period.
Dave Pedley, can I ask you your timescales for when you sold?
Yeah, I think Nick's probably stolen most of my thunder there on
Yeah.
that question. But yeah, the question, how long does it take to sell a business, is a bit like saying, how long does it take to get married? Because obviously it will depend very much on when the courtship starts. And as Nick alluded to, obviously they were sort of grooming the business for sale. But quite often, the idea to sell might come as a result of being chatted up in the bar rather than go into 6 months of speed dating. And so, you know, that becomes a whole part of the process. And that could be years. And it could have been a conversation at an SBA
Very good.
conference.
I have to ask this of Ian. I haven't planned this, but what is the quickest sale you've ever experienced, and what is the longest sale you've ever experienced? We'll pass the mic on to you.
No, put me on the spot. I mean, if you've got stuff that's off market, so it's not going through a sort of competitive tendering process like that, you can get a job done in a couple of months. But longest, I don't know. It can go on for a lot longer than you've described, I think. You get some fairly complicated ones that can get a bit painful.
Well, keep hold of the mic, because the next question is right up your Strasse. Any advice for those contemplating selling their business, the things they must do and the pitfalls to avoid?
It's back to the same point that these gentlemen have made about doing lots of planning a long time in advance. So the easiest deals for us are the ones where we've been involved perhaps 2-3 years out. So, you know, the business will have a 2-3 year plan, and they'll know what they want to do X, Y, and they get us involved at the start. So we can help the whole process of tidying the business up. There's a phrase called vendor DD, vendor due diligence. That's the equivalent of getting your house nice and tidy before you put it on the market. But it's a very thorough process. So we act like an aggressive purchaser, and we go all over the company and find any problems, and you sort them all out, you fix them. And this is like not painting over the damp patch, but fixing the damp patch. Getting all of that sorted a long time in advance. Getting data rooms are a thing that we have online now. Used to be in filing cabinets, I remember those, but now online. So all of the company documentation, all of the contracts, all of the employee contracts, everything in there all ready to go. And then when you push the button on the process, it's all there already, it's all nice and tidy. When the buyers come in and they're all over there, lawyers are all over that, when it's nice and tidy, there's nothing there for them to pick up on, there's nothing there for them to chip on price. It makes things nice and smooth. So it's doing that as long, you know, as far out as you can bear to do it, because if you leave that sort of stuff to the last minute, it takes a huge amount of time. It takes focus off the transaction itself. It can make you look a bit unprofessional. It can devalue you because you don't look sharp enough. So yeah, do that a long time in advance.
Ian, just another question. If you're an MD of a business, owner of a business, main shareholder, how important is it to distance yourself from the day-to-day running of that business so that the value isn't attributed to you?
Yeah, it's very important. There are, you know, when you're looking at selling a business, there'll be certain factors that will result in a reduction in your valuation. I think really, if you're not in a position whereby you've already brought the next level of management through, don't even think about it. You're not ready yet. It's something that every buyer is going to look at, because they want to know that that business can operate and generate revenue and profit without you. So you've absolutely got to make it work without you. So yeah, very, very important.
And to those gentlemen who have sold, was that your experience? Did you have to distance yourself? Please pass the mic to Nick.
No, I didn't. No. not really. No, I haven't really got anything more to. But I didn't personally.
Dave, you had an MD in place by the time you sold, and that was part of the plan, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, as Ian's said quite rightly, that a business isn't going to give you an acquirer isn't going to pay full value for a business if they think, you know, half of the intellectual property of that business is going to walk out the door. Whilst I wouldn't advocate to anyone else to go sailing for 2 years, it certainly worked really well for me, because I could legitimately say, well, look, I haven't been here for 2 years. Look how well the business is doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. You need a very well-established succession plan at the time
Very
of
good.
sale will add a lot of value.
Let's, we don't often talk about the employees in all of this. It's very much about the acquirer or the person who's selling. Let's talk a little bit about the employees. At what point do you engage with your staff about your plans? And how do you reassure them? And how do you, and have they been affected, and how would they be affected post-transaction? So a question about your employees. So
Are you talking about buying or selling?
about selling, yeah, you're selling your business. So Nick, Dave, you both had...
Well, I'll sort of kick off.
Yeah.
I mean, I would advocate it's very much on a need-to-know basis in the early stages of the process because, Ian, I'm sure will agree that a lot of deals will fail. And there's no point in upsetting all of your workforce if that's going to be the outcome. The process of due diligence is very daunting, and when you see the initial pro forma list of information, you know you are going to need a lot of help. So you'll need to engage with your top team quite early in that process. But you have to swear them to secrecy.
Yeah.
And there will often be sensitivity issues around the buyer that they will be adamant they don't want the information out in the market. So you can't obviously lie to your staff, but you probably occasionally might need to bend the truth as to why there are hordes of people walking through the factory. Most of us are used to big customer visits, so your staff will be used to seeing people go through the factory. But you probably do need to be a little bit creative. When you're at the point where you are pretty certain the deal is going to go through come what may, then you obviously need to communicate that to your staff in a very positive light. We were very keen to make sure that the acquirer of our business was right for the business and the staff for the future. So you sell the positivity of it. You obviously have to be very sensitive that people will be worried about their futures. So you need to allay those fears the best you possibly can. But you also need to make sure you tell everyone at the same time to avoid any Chinese whispers getting out there. So key stakeholders in the business, suppliers, customers, you have to have a very clear message.
Nick, anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, very similar to Dave there. We did engage quite early on with our senior management. So we'd got the tier of management there for the next phase of the business. So we had discussions with them. And then again, when we got to a point where it was obvious the deal was going to go through, we also engaged with every single employee on the shop floor. And we devised a little sort of bonus on completion of the sale of the business that everybody participated in. There's certain rules around that, but it was very well received. So during the earn-out period, everybody was engaged to achieve our targets. It worked very, very well. When it was known that it was Zeus who was the acquirer of Swanline, there was a lot of positivity because of the track record of Zeus's acquisitions, and so it was a very positive experience for us. But we also certainly Richard and myself stayed with the business in our normal positions. There was no obvious change. We'd got the succession there in place, so we'd got time to prepare for that after completion of the sale. But everybody was involved, all the employees were involved in some way to have a bit of money in their pocket at the end of the earn-out periods.
Very good. Well, before I ask you all for one takeaway, one giveaway to everybody here about the whole process of buying and selling, can we open, if you're in agreement, open to some questions from the audience, please? I think we've got a microphone here. So if you've got, this is a wonderful time to ask some questions of these experienced gentlemen. So if you've got any questions, please put your hand up. And there we go.
How do you value innovation that's not yet delivered to the business? So you talked about investment, both you, I know both plants and yourself there, I mean, came to your plant years ago. But you've got that capacity, but you've not fulfilled it. So is there a value on that potential?
The future value, yeah. So.
Well, Well, I would say you need to demonstrate spare capacity, because if you haven't got it, it'll come off the price, whatever the investment that's required is. So you'll pay for it one way or the other. No, you need to leave something in it for the next guy. You need to give him room to go, or her room to grow. And if you don't, it'll come off the price.
Ian, do you have any comments on how you sort of value future value? Something that hasn't quite come to fruition yet. Is there a means of getting that into the price, the selling price?
No, because I'm a lawyer, not an accountant.
Okay, very good. That's an excellent answer. Excellent. So do we have any more questions for our panelists, please? We have a mic. Put your hand up and we'll get the mic to you. Okay, so, there is one. There's one question. Very good.
Hi, everyone. So you've just sold your life's work. Do you have that thing called seller's regret? And if you did, how did you mitigate it?
No seller's regret. I mean, this for me, finding the right company to sell to was fundamentally important. And I absolutely feel we found that right. As soon as I met Brian O'Sullivan, I wanted to work for that guy. I have no regrets of it. Really like the culture there. And so, Anthony, to answer your question, no regrets whatsoever. I keep my mind ticking over with a little bit, so I keep doing, and so I still feel part of it. And no, I don't have any feeling of we shouldn't have done that, no.
So seller's regret, Dave, anything to add?
No, very much like Nick, not at all. I think most of you know we sold our business to Macfarlane, who were a 100-year-old PLC, very, very safe pair of hands. We were very confident they were going to look after our staff for the foreseeable future. And no, I've got family still in the business. I still take an enormous sense of pride seeing what the business has grown to and how they're continuing to grow. So yeah, certainly no regrets at all.
I think this might be some buyer's regret. We're going to have David add something here.
No, I was just going to say that what you've just heard from Nick and David is absolutely what I have seen on the other side of the table, talking to owner-managers wanting to sell their business. They're incredibly proud of what they've done. They're very loyal to their staff, and you need to respect that as an acquirer. In fact, as an individual, you can turn it into an advantage. You can share your plans with them, and you can give yourself a competitive advantage and see off competing offers by reassuring them that you're going to look after it and it's a good home.
Very good. We're running out of time a little bit here, so if you do have a question, I'm sorry, please grab these gentlemen later and ask the question personally. Perhaps just one takeaway from each of you. You know, what's the most important thing, in your opinion, if you're buying or selling a business? Something that these guys can just take away with them. So start one end and work to the other.
Funny enough, mine's going to be a simple one. It's just preparation, getting in there early, get a good plan and stick to it.
Thank you. I've helped 4 or 5 businesses sell, and the common denominator on 2 of them was having a number of bidders. A company called Bart Spices had 3 bidders, and they went for the middle company, not the company bidding the highest amount, so you don't need to go for the highest bidder. But why did they pick the middle one? Because culturally, they thought they would fit the most and they would look after their people. And I think that was the same in the other company. So the one that was going to look after their people.
Exactly the same. You've stolen my thunder there. So, important to us to have the right company that we were selling to, and to be able to look them in the eye and understand that what they were going to do to your business, which is your baby, they're going to continue that legacy, and they have done that.
Very good.
If you're buying a business, on day one, create confidence. The staff will be feeling nervous. Take them into your confidence, share your plans with them, give them something to believe in. I would also say, pay your suppliers on time. They're going to be watching you very closely, and their support, and particularly credit, is vital in the early years. And thirdly, if you have to cut, try and cut once no matter how deep, because a death by 1,000 cuts is incredibly demoralizing.
Very good. Thank you.
I guess more a piece of practical advice. Ian mentioned it earlier. When you come to sell your business, you don't just roll up to the guy that's done your corporation tax returns for the last 20 years. He's not going to be the best person to help you through the process. Spend time finding absolutely the right professional advisors. It's the single most important transaction you'll ever do in your life. To say it's an emotional roller coaster would be an understatement. So that professional advisor's role is partly pastoral. I think you'll agree. They're going to mop your brow through the low times and just keep the whole thing on track. Try and mop up some of the emotion through the whole process, but make sure you engage with the right advisors.
Fantastic. Some really good sage advice there. Can we thank our panelists very much indeed? Cheers.